Mack Rhoades, Director of Athletics at Baylor, with us most Tuesdays. Last week we had him on Thursday. There was a lot going on last week, of course, in Las Vegas, elsewhere, award ceremonies and foundation and Hall of Fames. He joins us on 365 Sports with Greg Paul, and I'm David Smoke. Do you have any type of recollection of contact or a story about Mike Leach?
I appreciate the question. You know, one I'll tell you, he's when you think about sports figures and coaches throughout history, I think, you know, one word, character, probably best describes him. And obviously, you know, you think about, man, all of his coaching tree, those that are head coaches, you know, those that he impacted, that's a pretty big list. And, you know, a sad day. And, you know, I've seen, you know, Coach Leach, or I saw Coach Leach at a couple functions where, you know, literally he was just holding court with everyone. He was quite the entertainer when he was in front of people. And I think what struck me the first time was just the broad scope of subject matter he could touch upon. So, you know, obviously our thoughts and our prayers go out to the Leach family, and again, a sad day for college football.
Your football coach is part of that coaching tree. Dave Aranda was a grad assistant for him, and Dave Aranda's a unique guy as well. The thing I think that I keep coming back to, Mac, is he was so unique in a business where it can be very cliche driven, right? And there are, you know, we're going to play so-and-so football, and we're going to do what we do, and blah, 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 blah. He was out there and unique. Are you drawn to those kind of, as an AD, drawn to coaches who are unique and cut their own path, or are not, you know, in the box of cliche machines?
Yeah, I think I am. I think, you know, I'm probably drawn to those that aren't, you know, necessarily robotic and, you know, are prescribed with certain sayings and you know, maybe, sayings, thoughts. I thought, you know, he was a breath of fresh air, in that sense, because he was obviously very, very comfortable in his own skin, or he seemed to be. You know, I didn't, you know, I don't want to, you know, make it sound like I had a relationship with him because I did. Now I know a lot of people that had close relationships with him, and so he was just unique. And you know, I thought, you know, I saw something today. He won at places where, you know, you wouldn't think of as places that you typically win at. And that's no disrespect to those places, but I thought that was a pretty dang good compliment, because of his uniqueness, whether it was him personally or you know, offense or whatever. He always found a way to maximize, you know, whatever assets he had, and then, you know, turn that into winning football. So again, it's a sad day, and, you know, I think he would tell you he certainly wasn't perfect, and probably could have handled some things better, but he made an impact in our industry. That's for sure, in a positive way.
So, Mac, there's the bowl game coming up next week. There's signing day also coming up next week. There's the transfer portal having just opened up. There's coaching hires. I mean, what's the calendar like right now, in particular for football, and just all of the plates that are up in the air at the moment?
Yeah, it's chaos. It really is. And, you know, you're trying to, you know, if you're a head football coach, right, you're trying to navigate, in particular if you're going to a postseason in a bowl game, man, you're trying to have practice. You're trying to, you know, keep young men, from going into the transfer portal. You're trying to stay connected with your recruits and, in anticipation of the early signing period. You're looking at the transfer portal. So there's a lot to navigate for our coaches right now. And as I think about the future, I don't know, if it gets better, unless we were to do something different with the early signing period. But I'm not sure where, we've been down that road. We've looked at, moving it into January. We've, looked at it at several different places, and quite frankly, it's probably at the place where it fits best, unless you just get rid of it and just go to back to the one signing period that first Wednesday in February. So a lot, Craig, a lot going on that coaching staffs are having to juggle.
And the trend of late, maybe because of the Jalen Smith injury at Notre Dame, has been now players who have professional, goals opting out. And that's a part of this mix too, isn't it?
No, it is. It's kind of it's the new thing that's happening. I think what will be interesting, Smoke, to think about is, will you see any of that when the playoffs expand from 4 to 12? And if and I'm obviously making this up, but if you're a team that's seeded 9 through 12, is that a quote unquote big enough game for a player to not opt out and to participate in? So that whole dynamic, I'm interested to see how that happens. I think what possibly happens is the other bowl games outside of those first games on campus, how do those feel? Is there still significance to them? And do you see it stable in terms of the number that opt out, or do you see it increasing? So just be interesting to keep an eye on it.
Would those bowl games have to, maybe now that they live in the NIL space, have to maybe come up with paying the players to play in those bowl games to prevent some of those opt-outs? And even then, you're thinking about maybe even a significant number for one game, so it might not even be worth their while to do that.
Yeah, Paul, that's an interesting idea. And, we just participated, men's basketball in the game versus Gonzaga, where, the student athletes, both teams earn name, image, and likeness money. And so maybe that's, a potential way of keeping some of the players to play in those games. And, that could evolve as we think about it. It's name, image, and likeness right now is such a moving target. And, I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that 2 years from now will be exactly like it is today, what we know it is today. I just think it's gonna change. I could potentially see it come in house. You'd have to figure out the Title IX piece of that, but I think that's going to continue to change and evolve, and how that is interwoven into potentially postseason is going to be interesting. Will there be a day that comes the NCAA men's basketball tournament, and you think about that potential here in the future, new TV contract, and is name, image, likeness gonna have to be interwoven into that? That's the world we're living in, and I was talking to our staff. I'm not sure there's best practices anymore. It doesn't feel like there's best practices. It feels like there's safe practices, things that that you can do that are secure, but it just, everything is evolving at such a rapid pace. It's, just trying to stay proactive and make choices, the best choices you can as things evolve.
Mac, one more question on the opt-outs. The other thing about it is, now, the way that coaches have managed redshirt years and, 4 games and all that, a lot of times most coaches are, saving the bowl game for one of those 4 that the people have to play because of that. But that can be a game where you lose your eligibility, or you have to straight up and down play a guy you didn't want to play at all this year because he's the last quarterback on your team after transfer portal and opt-out to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, that's some of the stuff that, coaches are faced with. You've got one of the CFP, this is not an opt out, but this is a transfer, right? You've got, one of the teams in the CFP where their, backup quarterback, a really, really good player, just announced he's going into the portal, and he's going to a school within the conference. And so now, that CFP team, their starting quarterback gets injured, in the semis, or, that obviously huge impact. Because now you've got somebody on, that was 3 deep now having to move up, and how many staffs have they gotten? And, are they really prepared if their number's called? So, there's just it's the world we're living in. And, I think coaches are just having to find ways to adjust.
Mac, I know that many times it's been discussed, the 2023 Big 12 schedule. It was going to be early December, but now we're at December 13th. Do you have, at least, can you give us a clue of when that might be released and your thoughts?
Yeah, so, I think we talked about it, Smoke, on Thursday a little bit, and, the date that we had floated out there was mid-December, December 15th. I haven't heard anything differently. Now, I don't know that, the 15th is the specific date, but, as far as I know, I still think we're looking at, mid-December and getting it out there and at least the 23 schedule, so that we can move on. So we're close, but I don't have a specific date.
Brett McMurphy yesterday had an article about the fact that there is some sort of momentum with Texas and Oklahoma possibly leaving the conference after 2023 and in 2024. Have you seen, heard, or been a part of any of that?
So, I think, this conversation, we've been having it for months and months. And when I say we, I think the media, I think the Big 12, I think the SEC, I think, Oklahoma and Texas. And so, I would say that conversations are ongoing, and, certainly, nothing imminent, but, if there's a way for, a Texas and an Oklahoma to move on with their lives, a year early, and that could be worked out in a manner where, it's fair to both conferences and the member institutions. That's something that's going to be strongly considered. And so I think those conversations are ongoing. And, I do think as we get into, the new year, probably the first quarter of the new year, there'll be, probably some clarity, because those conversations can't go on forever.
Will you or anyone who is remaining allow any kind of departure without still getting a lot of what you expect to get when it comes to whatever you want to call the money that they would owe, and also Fox, ESPN making sure they scratch an itch for the Big 12?
Yeah, I think, the sentiment, obviously, and there's, we have attorneys, right, to figure out and negotiate all of that. But, I think the sentiment is that, there is a termination fee that we expect, both Oklahoma and Texas to pay, per our bylaws. And, both of those institutions were involved in writing those bylaws years ago. And then, I think when it comes to TV partners, if that departure is prior to the, to the last year, then, we certainly, don't expect to lose a nickel, a penny, right? That will continue to be made whole. And I don't think I'm saying anything that's prolific. I think that's common sense, logical, and that's the expectation.
Mack, you had the game with Gonzaga. You mentioned that in South Dakota. Brett Yormark also made the comment recently about Gonzaga when someone asked him in Vegas about them and possible whatever the future and realignment. But he also, I think, mentioned something about an international footprint in basketball. Is that something that is possible?
Yeah, I think that, look, we're exploring everything. And so, we've had a conference, play a football game overseas. So I think it's fair to say that, we're talking about, is there anything we do internationally? Does anything make sense, both football and basketball? And when we think about basketball, not just men's, but women's as well. So there's conversations like that are occurring and happening, and probably more right now at the 40,000 foot level. But I think there's an interest there. I think there's probably some belief that basketball is undervalued, and how do we correct that? And so there's those conversations going on. But I think it's safe to say that when it comes to the Big 12 right now, everything's on the table, and we're having a lot of conversation and looking at a lot of different business models and ways to do things and partnerships and connecting with a variety of different age groups. And so it's been really cool to be right in the middle of that and be able to speak into some of it and be a part of it. So, I think the Big 12 is going to continue to evolve, and what we are today, I think 12 months from now, we'll be different. There'll be some different elements in terms of the way we do business and operate.
The bowl game's like 10 days away, less than that. Do you think that Dave Aranda will have a defensive coordinator named before then?
That's a great question. I think it's a possibility. Craig spoke to, everything that's going on right now, bowl practice, recruiting, transfer stuff. And so I think that, it's hard to do a thorough search right now. Not to say that there haven't been conversations and contact and connections, but I think it's more likely it's going to be after. But there is still a possibility that something could happen before. And not only is Dave, dealing with all of the things that we've talked about, but he's right now running defense, and so having to navigate and do that, and so he's got a lot on his plate right now.
Mack, thank you as always for your time and access. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Mack
Bye-bye.
Rhoades, Director of Athletics at Baylor, on a lot of things, including the chaos, as he says, total chaos when it comes to NIL, transfer portal, all of the things, opt-outs, etc. And we appreciate his time most every Tuesday here on 365 Sports. I know we have Craig's Off the Radar coming around the